Good evening. I'm Yodit Tewolde, and this is Making the Case. We begin tonight with a disturbing case of alleged police brutality inside of a jail in Illinois. Ariel Harrison, a 31-year-old black mother of three, was arrested back in October of 2019 after police say they received a call about reckless driving. Officers say she was driving under the influence of alcohol, but Ariel, who's blind in one eye, denies this and says she was never given a sobriety test before being taken to jail. And it was there that Ariel says she was tased and forcibly stripped naked in front of two male correction officers. Jail security footage of the incident corroborates her story, and with Ariel's consent, we'll play a portion of that video now. A word of warning, for some, it may be hard to watch. Here you can see multiple officers restraining Ariel, then tasing her before they exit the cell, leaving her handcuffed, lying face down on the ground. In this moment, you can see two officers appear to forcibly strip Ariel after telling them she was afraid of being sexually assaulted. Shortly after, another male corrections officer enters the room. Then they all pin her down and remove her clothes. You then see the officers walking out, leaving Ariel alone and naked in the jail cell. We've reached out to the McDonough County Sheriff's Office, who run the county jail where Ariel was held, but haven't heard back. I'm joined now by Ariel Harrison and the president of the Democratic Women of McDonough County, Heather McMeekan. I believe Ariel is on the phone. Thank you, ladies, for coming on tonight.
Thank you so much for having us. We're so grateful for this opportunity to speak to your viewers.
Likewise. Ariel, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Well, let me start first by asking you, Ariel, how have you been dealing with this traumatic ordeal?
Well, I have PTSD, so I be having basically nightmares, not so good.
Now, Ariel, if at any time you feel uncomfortable talking about certain aspects, any aspects of that night, please know that we understand. Now, can you walk us through the night in question? What led up to your arrest and you being placed in a jail cell?
Ariel, would you like me to kind of take it through and then you correct anything that I've forgotten or gotten wrong?
Yes.
Okay. So, taking it from where Ariel had been babysitting, and this is a night in October of 2019. It is cold and wet. It's raining. There was actually sleet during this arrest. And Ariel was a fairly new driver. She is blind in her left eye, a legacy of not having adequate medical care for her cataracts when she was younger. And she had gotten her driver's license earlier that spring. So she hadn't driven much in that type of weather. She had dropped off some of the kids at the YMCA for a party. And then when she picked up a woman who lives near her, who was walking in the weather, and offered her a ride. She had seen her in her apartment complex before, so it did that. The woman asked for a ride to Taco Bell. The woman's mother came out, gave her daughter, who Ariel at the time was told was 19, but we found out that she was actually a bit older than that, and gave her money, and neither of them appeared or expressed any concern about Ariel's driving or fitness for driving at that point. And then Ariel and she were headed back to their apartment complex. So Ariel stopped at a liquor store that is a very popular place amongst our local college students. It's on the way there. I suspect Ariel was probably one of the only, if not the only, black person who would have been in that vicinity. An off-duty firefighter made a call and said that Ariel, or that a vehicle that matched that description had driven recklessly. And so the police arrived, and there was actually a vehicle behind Ariel's. and we didn't actually see this video until, because it was withheld, strangely, until the court case. So we haven't been able to vet any of this. But at some point they start following Ariel, and she is in a vehicle that is not hers, it's borrowed. The left driver's side door window does not go down. It has tinted windows, and again, Ariel is blind in her left eye, and it's a very dark, sleety night. So she proceeds north on North Randolph, which those of us who've lived here a while know that that is a street that is old gray asphalt. It does not have any lines painted on it. It's poorly lit. The shoulders are shad and not well defined, and people often drive down the middle of the street because there's just not, there's no lines there. And in the dark, I will relay that our members with cataracts will not take that after dark because they know that that's a hard street for them to drive on. But Ariel, being a new driver in this community, wouldn't necessarily have known that. And so you see at some point the police officer turns on his floodlight and he is pointing it at the vehicle. But remember, Ariel is blind in one eye. She has a passenger she doesn't know and didn't realize that that person had a fear of the police as well, who is now freaking out. And that officer is shining a spotlight through the vehicle. So Ariel's trying to discern, are they after me? Because there was another vehicle behind her that she thought that they could have been after. And in the video, it looked like it could have been the other vehicle too. And then you can see her kind of veer to the left and the curb in the video, right? And again, we don't have the veracity of this, but what appeared was her trying to pull out of the way of the police in case they were going after somebody else. And as a former paramedic and EMS instructor, I'll just let you know that that's not unusual. People often are kind of rattled by lights and sirens behind them. They don't always react predictably, and often we white folks are just given grace for that. But Ariel realizes that, they're not going past her, so she proceeds another block or two at a slow rate of speed. The police report shows that she never went over 29 miles per hour. She does get to the top of the hill. She stops at the stop sign. It was what they called a soft stop, okay? She makes a left. She proceeds and stops at the traffic light there. And now is where it diverges from the way that we typically would see white folks be treated. The officer stops. He, for whatever reason, forgot to turn on his audio of his camera, or at least that's what he said in court. So we'll take him at his word for that. But he and then another officer pulls up, and within 20 seconds, this all goes down. So now they go up quickly to the door, and within seconds, they are yelling, roll down the window, put it in park, take off your seatbelt, give us your driver's license and registration. Literally within seconds, she's being given all these instructions while she's trying to explain she can't roll down the window because it doesn't roll down. And they get impatient after just 3 to 5 seconds. Apparently, well, in court anyway, they said that she was non-compliant. And I'll let you know, if I have two cops up on me, they open up the door, they give her just orders, barking orders at her. The passenger on her right is freaking out and doesn't know what to do. And Ariel's trying to discern, and she asks them, why are you pulling me over? What's happening? And they have their hands on her and they pull her out and she's seated on the ground, literally within 20 seconds. That is not enough time for the average person to even be able to understand and process all the directions, much less someone like Ariel, who is already, tired, she's disabled, she's a new driver, she's, can't see, they're shining mag lights in her eyes, and she only has one eye. So they have her on the ground now, they handcuff her. Officer Steiger puts her in the back of the police vehicle, and now she's headed back to the jail. On the way back to the jail, you can see Ariel she's asking, where am I going? And she's rocking like this. And I'm going to put on my health educator hat here, and also as a trauma survivor, and let you know that rocking is a perfectly normal self-comfort behavior. We see it in children, we see it in the sick, and it's something that we see in people who are under great stress and trying to self-regulate. And at some point, because she is so petite and they did not, for whatever reason, make sure the handcuffs were put on correctly, one of her hands slips out of the cuff. And so she is anemic, so you can see her trying to pull her sleeves down and trying to warm up. And but she is clearly very distraught, not understanding what's happening. She pulls up into the garage of the jail. They call it the Sally Port, and then they lower the garage door, and then you can see Officer Gavin Steiger gets out. He walks around to the other side. He says, "Get out, Ariel, please." And she refuses and asks, why am I being detained? And she does yell, as I would. I'd be yelling the whole way. And so he goes around the other side, gets the other two corrections officers, and then the woman comes in, holds the taser at her, and now she's standing in the doorwell right there at the passenger back side. Steiger goes around to the other side. He's a very tall man. He outweighs her by quite a bit. He gets behind her, and again, she can't see anything, right? But she senses that someone's behind her, and Officer Johnson, Christina Johnson, is telling her, "Get out, Ariel." And Ariel yells, "No, don't touch me. Why am I being detained?" And Officer Steiger takes both hands and shoves her, and I'm going to tell you, we only saw this in court because they still haven't given her or us the video, and shoves her with such force that her head slams into the door jamb and then twists to the side, and he is shoving her out like that. And she's yelling, and the corrections officers are telling her to get out. And so her hands then come out where she had put them behind her, come out behind her, and she's about to fly right into Officer Johnson. Remember, she's blind in one eye. So for their claim of her being shoved from behind by a much stronger male while she's a petite woman now getting her head hit, she throws her arms out, and her arms land on Officer Christina Johnson's collar. And so you can see her hands realize she's got the collar. She lets go. She rocks back. He shoves her and hits her head again. She falls out now. I'm sorry, my dog is sensing I'm upset, and so he's trying to calm me down. It's okay, buddy.
No.
And so
Heather,
she would have plowed right into Officer Johnson. If her hands would have been behind her, handcuffed, she would have ended up flat on her face. And that was the basis for the charge of aggravated battery. But at no time is she, hitting them. She's not lashing out. So then they have her on the ground, and they take her to the back of the vehicle where the video doesn't show this, but you can hear them tasing her, and Ariel screaming and crying and asking why they're doing that to her and yelling, "Fine, just kill me. What are you doing?" And then we can see in the video them carrying her apparently unconscious into the jail cell, or at least very limp, and then they lay her down, and then that's the first clip of video that we pick up where the tasering report claims 3 tasers, but we found 5 taser wounds on her, along with a myriad of other wounds as well, even though they claim she had suffered no ill effects whatsoever and never got her any medical care. And then that video shows Officer Steiger drop his knee down on her. Whether it's on her shoulder or her neck, it's hard to tell. But remember, she's blind in her left eye, so she's being forced on the pavement with her right eye to the pavement. She can't see anything. She's now got 3 people on this 140-pound disabled woman,
Heather,
and they tased her, and then go ahead. She left.
Hey, Heather.
Sorry, go ahead. I can't hear really well.
Heather, no. Oh, I'm sorry. No, yeah, you walked us through a very thorough, night in question. We're running low on time, but I wanted to first get some information on your organization, because we have a lawyer coming on in the next segment that's going to be explaining the legal issues involved in these sorts of cases. But I'd like to ask you how your organization, because y'all have been such big strong advocates for her, for Ariel. How did y'all get involved?
We got involved because we formed our org to be an intersectional, progressive, feminist org, and we put our main value, our North Star, is allyship first. And so and I'll be honest, at first our Black members let us know that we as white women, white feminists, were the problem, and they were right. So we had to spend a lot of our time, really learning how to listen, how to respond. And then we started going after racial justice because the complaints started rolling in once we started listening. And then we realized, we don't just have a problem with people, not understanding the law or maybe not realizing people are our government. We have a real problem with our system of justice here was built by and for white people primarily, and it functions, primarily for white class privileged people. And so we had put up we held affidavit workshops and such. And then Ariel had reached out to one of our members through one of our platforms. And then she went and did the initial interview. And then we started going after what evidence we could get, because we start by believing that something traumatic has happened. And then we try to find the evidence, and we filed FOIAs, and we didn't receive all of her evidence, which we thought was odd. And we also tried to get the community to care. We spoke at city council. We tried to speak at the county board. They changed the public comment policy to shut us up, and not just on Ariel's cases, but on all cases that we tried to bring up. And we were told to basically to go away. And so we realized that we had to work at trying to get these stories out of the community.
Hey, Heather. Oh, yes. Heather, we're running out of time. I know we could talk about this a lot longer, so we'll have you back for sure. Ariel Harrison and President of the Democratic Women of McDonough County, Heather McMeekan, that is. I'm sorry. Thank you both for your time.
Thank you so much.